Hey everybody, and welcome to this AMA video. I'm here joined by all of the thinkers and decision makers on the project. I'm here with Jason, our Chief Software Architect, Josh, our CMO, Key, our CTO, and of course, the one and only Chris, our CEO. So today we're going to be going through a bunch of questions about ORC 8, which a lot of you obviously have been asking. Various different questions about what our plans are and where things are going after we released that proposal a couple of weeks ago. So we wanted to take the time to sit down and answer all of your pressing questions. Now, we'll try and get through as many questions as we possibly can. If we don't get to your question today, don't worry, there will most likely be more AMAs as we continue to progress through this process. But we will, like I said, try and get through as many as possible and in as much detail as possible. So to start us off, I've got a question for you, Josh, which is, what does ORC 8 even stand for?
Oh, an easy one up front. So ORC 8 is Oxen Request for Comment. And then 8 is basically the identifier that it's the 8th one that we've done. If you want a little bit of a history on this thing, I'm pretty sure it was popularized by Ethereum with the ERC20 coins. Actually stands for Ethereum Request for Comment, and that was the 20th ERC. And then even back before that, I'm pretty sure it was just old school, early days internet technology and like tech development communities about requests for comments. So anyways, long story long, Oxen Request for Comment, and it's the 8th one.
Wonderful.
Technically, it's not, because we actually had Loki requests for comments, and then we renamed them, but we kept the number going up.
That's true. We did have LRCs going on, and we done LIPs as well, Loki improvement proposals, which also Ethereum do, and Bitcoin do VIPs as well. So
right now they're called WIPs.
And of course, all this stuff is on the GitHub. So if you're curious to go and get a history lesson of the project, you can go and read all of those requests for comment and improvement proposals for back in the day. Over to you, Chris. What will be the main differences between Oxen and Cent?
Cool. Yeah, let's just stick to the top three on both sides. Let's just, if you have a good understanding of Oxen, you understand it's a fork of Monero, it's a privacy coin, private transactions. You remember the experience of staking to a node and getting involved with the token or the coin. Sorry. What we're looking to change, the main key features here, is going to be the ability to stake to a node, to engage with the network much more freely, and much easier. So, say from MetaMask or using your favorite hardware device, bringing the brands together in terms of the experience with the token and what the token means to the products that it's representing. And unifying everything in that sort of easier, simple way. So I think from the perspective of somebody who's never heard of either of these projects, one is very privacy focused. The other one is more utility focused for the privacy tools.
And Josh, I guess you probably have some extra things to add, because there's the differences between Oxen and Cent from a marketing perspective could be quite big.
Yeah. I mean, one of the main differences between them is really tied to the branding, like tying everything towards session a lot more, which is also why we've still been tossing up in the air the idea of calling it session token. The idea is to try and like make that connection between session and the token and all our products more cohesive. So that way it's very easy for people to just like straight from the get-go kind of see session token or session branded things and relate them to the session ecosystem, kind of similar to how Google or Proton do their system.
Cool.
Yeah,
and
I think I'll just say very succinctly, like the three biggest changes I think are token economic changes, privacy changes, and branding changes. So those are the three things that I would look at here. And you can go deeper into all of those topics, and that's what the ORC itself does.
Great. And now a bit of a more technical question. So this will be for either Key or Jason. Will Cent be a fork of Oxen or a complete new chain or something else entirely?
Yeah, kind of something else entirely. Because one of the biggest ideas that we had when we were looking at how to technically do this was to keep the Oxen chain running to an extent. And we're potentially going to call that the Oxen work chain. And then we would have the EVM chain that we go to, which would be where users' balances are represented, where people trade their tokens, where people transfer value. But the Oxen work chain would basically deal with all of the service node state. So registrations, deregistrations, uptime proofs, all of that goes on the service node state, as well as tracking your owed balances as well. So, your rewards that you're accruing over time would be accrued on the Oxen work chain, and then there would kind of be bridged in this decentralized way between the EVM chain and the Oxen work chain. So yeah, it's kind of like a hybrid between, like keeping all of the stuff that we've built on top of Monero, but also having the advantages of the EVM chain for wallet management and all of the trickier stuff there that we've had problems with on Oxen.
I think just one thing to add, I think that our plan down the road is that we would eventually minimize that Oxen work chain. So it might still be there, but we would reset it onto a new blockchain rather than carry the 20 gigs of data or whatever that we're currently carrying. But that probably would not be the case in the initial implementation, that we're just going to continue the current Oxen chain, but we're going to change around how rewards and staking and contributions work on it.
And a bit of a follow-up for you, Jason. How is this transition from Oxen to Cent actually going to work logistically? Is it going to be an immediate change or something that will happen over time?
So this is an area that we're still really working on. We had a meeting yesterday, basically to try and hash out some of the details on this. But one of the things that's going to happen is, in terms of earning rewards, that's going to be a fairly quick transition. So we'll have a hard fork on the Oxen side. That's going to essentially say now service nodes could be staked with either Oxen or with Cent. New stakes would all have to be sent, and then there'll be a grace period for people to take their existing Oxen service nodes and re-register them with a Cent contribution. We're still working exactly how that's going to work in terms of operators and shared nodes and fees and all of that stuff. There's a lot of details in there that we still need to worry about, that we don't know yet what we're going to do. But that's the broad strokes of it.
So for node operators, that'll be a manual process of shifting over from the Oxen network to the new network.
There will be a manual process. One of the things that we're discussing is a possibility of allowing you to register in advance and say, my Oxen wallet, this thing is going to transition to this Cent wallet, and have that be kind of a more automatic thing, so that right at that fork, it would automatically transition. There's some technical issues around that we might not be able to implement that. But if we can, that's one of the things we want to do, so that you don't have to be sitting there and waiting for it's happening right now, let me submit my stuff and have this mad rush. We want it to be, there's some grace period involved there.
Great. And for you, Chris, when we're in this transition period with the network, are we going to move ahead with the launch of Session Pro while we're in that transition period, or are we going to wait to be moved across to the Cent network before Session Pro is launched, or how are we going to handle that process?
I'm very excited about Session Pro. There's no reason to delay it if we can launch it however it's sort of ready. I think it can't just be done in one day anyway. So we build, we plan, we get as far as we can. If at one point in time, we do have to, maybe there is changes we can make that would be better on this new network that we would change. But overall, we're not looking to delay Session Pro for this change. We're looking to keep pushing in both directions. There's quite a lot of building and design involved with both. And that's something that we're excited about on both fronts. So we're not looking to drop any plates here. We're looking to build on both fronts and launch both fronts as soon as we can.
And Josh, how involved do we want the community to be in the branding and decision-making processes on the marketing side of things as we make this transition?
Oh, pretty involved. So I mean, Scott, one of the community members, kind of sort of proposed this idea ages and ages ago as well, which sort of sparked the idea to begin with. But yeah, we're paying attention to all the things that you guys, the community, say in our Telegram channel, in the ORC as well. I mean, we noticed that you guys were talking about how the connection between sent and session probably isn't strong enough, which were concerns that we had, which is why we're thinking of sessionifying things even more. So yeah, we definitely are taking the community's feedback on board. Obviously, there is a balance though, because we need to move fast with this if we want to capitalize and get this sorted to be able to capitalize on the next bull run. So, you know, obviously, if we brought every decision to the community and made it a community vote, it would just extend out the time period too long. Like, it would just take too long to get anything done. So we have to find that balance. And at the moment, I feel like the balance is we kind of put something out to you guys and we get your feedback, and then we kind of like make refinements and we put it back out again. That seems to be working. But again, that's one of those things that we're just going to have to keep gauging and finding the right kind of balance there between the community involvement and pushing this thing out fast.
And Jason, for those people out there who have ONS records at the moment, are they going to be retained after the switch, or how is that transition going to work?
Yes, they will be retained. We don't exactly know how they're going to be retained yet. We still need to work out a lot of the details on this transition. But obviously, keeping ONS intact and keeping the existing records intact is a huge thing. We don't want we don't want to create like a second mad rush for ONS names, especially because those names are actually in use. You give people your ONS name, they message you, and if someone else could jump in at this fork and snatch it away from you, that would be a very bad thing. So absolutely, we need to transition those. That is a very important goal that we have. Our initial implementation may well involve keeping ONS on the Oxen work chain and just working out how we can allow new registrations to be submitted on the sent side and have those get picked up on the Oxen chain. Longer term, we want to transition away from that, but we're not going to do it unless we're going to make sure that we can keep all the current ONS.
I don't actually
And
mind
so-
if there is a mad rush, because it'll give me a chance to get Josh. I never actually got Josh to begin with. Someone got it
I
before me.
I think Chris got that. I think he has all of our first names registered.
No idea what you're talking about, Jason. There's a secondary market where you can purchase these names, and yeah, I thought I gave it to you. I think I've got Josh. Hit me up later.
Yeah, definitely give it to me. I've been looking for this.
So just on the potential of using the Oxen work chain for ONS records, or potentially moving away from that in the future, how are we going to preserve privacy for people when they're purchasing ONS records or in the new namespace system?
Yeah, so there's a few ideas here. Obviously, being an ERC20 token, when you move the token or spend the token, that's visible on the kind of the blockchain. There's no privacy there by default. There are various ideas about how we may implement some level of privacy on the Ethereum chain. One method would be to kind of offer, have a centralized kind of gateway, which would pay for that ORC registration on your behalf. But then you'd be able to pay that centralized gateway in a number of different cryptocurrencies, whether that be Monero or some other privacy-based coin. That's one way. The other way is to look at how we can do this on the Ethereum chain itself. So there are certain privacy tools available, stuff like Railgun. We just had a Twitter Spaces with them last week. and they can offer some privacy using zero knowledge proofs on top of the Ethereum blockchain. And then there's also ways to kind of mix your Ethereum on the Ethereum blockchain using Tornado Cash. All of these have different properties to them, like all these privacy solutions have different properties to them. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not as good as, the privacy that we currently have inside of Oxen when you register an ONS name. But we do have to make some trade-offs here to increase the user experience on the Ethereum side of things, and what we're going to get from that is pretty big. But obviously, being a privacy-based project, this is something that's really important to us. So we're going to investigate if we can do this, and if there is a way that we can do this while still preserving the user experience for the rest of the users of the Cent token, then absolutely, there's no reason that we wouldn't do this. So yeah, it's a strong focus of us while we're doing this migration, but we'll see what's technically possible.
I think the other thing to consider around it as well too is that perhaps ONS isn't a privacy feature. This is something that you'd obviously have to look into more and do more user testing. But generally, when people get an ONS, they're trying to make themselves more accessible, like more easier to be identified. So perhaps it's just something that isn't really a privacy feature in the end as well. But yeah, again, it's just something that you got to look into a little bit more.
It does give you a certain amount of pseudonymity, though, and I think that's something we do want to preserve.
Yeah, I think more of our focus has actually been on around how to make Session Pro more private, because we definitely see people who really want a lot of privacy, the power users, the core of Session, that want to buy Session Pro as well. So, but if we find something that can be applied to ONS, it's likely that it can be applied to Session Pro purchases as well. So yeah, definitely a focus that we're looking at.
Now, a question more on the tokenomics side for you, Chris. Will Oxen holders be able to swap for Cent? A burning question.
Yeah, so that's part of the plan. We haven't launched the specific details yet. We're still finalizing that. Once we get a few things ticked off, we're keen to share with the community. But yeah, we are looking to offer some form of swapping between Oxen and Cent. What that looks like exactly, TBC.
And as a bit of a follow-up, and in a much related topic, how badly are Oxen holders going to be diluted in this process?
So it's a really strange concept. Someone actually asked me in this community the other day, and I was like, okay, well, how do you answer this question? It's very loaded. It's a very loaded question. How much do you want to screw me over as a question? And from my perspective, that's not the game plan here in any way, shape, or form. What we're trying to do here is make the project and community thrive. So with the Chainflip spin-off, Oxen holders got 4.5% for running nodes. And if we didn't do that, if we didn't spin that project off as it was, then I don't know where we would be today. Would we have made it to this point? I do not know. We did that not because we wanted to spin off that project. We saw that we were not able to actually build and launch Chainflip with our resources, and it needed to be spun off. And the airdrop, I think in total it was 4.5 million Flip tokens with no lockup that are going to be released when that goes live. And yeah, that was sort of a win-win for all projects from my perspective. So, and then coming back to dilution, this thought or fear that some people have, if we don't make a big change now, what options do we have? If we don't change the economics, change how everything works, we're looking to cap the supply as well. It changes everything. It changes the dynamic of the tokens and how they operate on the network. So I can't give you an exact number on this right now. This is being finalized. We are moving forward. We're trying to make sure that the community feels engaged and happy with the decisions that get made on this. And we're taking a lot of feedback on this as well. But yeah, you just have to stay tuned, because we're trying to do our best to make sure that node holders and Oxen holders are being thought about and looked after during this process.
The other thing about the Chainflip spinoff as well is that also it didn't fit under it didn't align with the foundation's goals as well. Like Chainflip isn't a privacy project, and so just up against LokiNet, Oxen, Session, all the products that we had, it just didn't fit in there as well. It wouldn't have worked. So it was just another reason why we had to spin it off and have it not happen under the foundation as well, because it just didn't work.
Yeah, I think even if we did keep it, say somehow, we did have the funds with the other team, we were able to launch Chainflip from the OPTF, we would have run into countless further regulatory issues that we just wouldn't be able to, they just cause more friction with our other applications. So yeah, even looking back at this point in time, I think it was best for the project to have spun that off. I think it's a very good outcome overall, and good luck for their launch.
Will service node operators receive rewards in Cent?
Yes, that's our plan. Once we launch the Cent token, once you've transitioned your service node to your Cent wallet, you're going to be earning your rewards in Cent. We probably will have a little bit of a different way that the rewards work. Like currently, right now, your Oxen wallet just accumulates all your rewards, and then twice a week it gets a payout. Probably what we're going to have, and again, when we talk about the technicals, this is all tentative, but probably what we're going to have is that you will accumulate a balance into your Cent address, and when you want to, you'll be able to submit a transaction that will actually get that out into your wallet. So it's still there, it's still tied to your wallet. Nothing's going to happen to it. The network's looking after it, but you decide when you get it out, rather than our current, twice a week.
And is there a particular reasoning for that difference, Jason?
It's a little bit easier. It gets, like, when we are the ones running the chain and we can do everything on the chain, it's pretty easy to say, hey, we're going to just put these things out there, these rewards. When we're having to interact with another chain, it gets more complicated, and it potentially gets more expensive in terms of transaction fees, because we've got to pay transaction fees that we can't just sort of make disappear because we control the network. We actually have to give some of those to the other network that we're leveraging here.
Wonderful. All right. For you again, Chris, I am losing money each month running my nodes. Why should I stick around?
Interesting question. For one, the nodes operating at this point in time is the backbone of the network and the project. So thank you to all the node operators. Genuinely, it's great. That's what's supporting, the 750,000 plus monthly active users on Session, and the progress with LokiNet, and letting us continue to build, test, and ship products. The challenge here with losing money, you have the freedom to do whatever you need to do. We're not here to lock anyone in. We don't want to make anyone feel obliged to do anything. This is your decision. This is your choice. We are, if you look at the history of crypto, I've been in crypto for over 10 years now. I love seeing the ups and downs and all the journeys. The concept here is there's people who put all their energy and effort in a bull run into a project, and they're mining a Litecoin or whatever it is someone's doing, and they're operating at a loss, or they're breaking even. The thing is, you can mine and you can dedicate yourself to something. And if you're looking at a project at the worst of the worst point in time, and you're making all your future predictions off that bad time, then obviously, yeah, you're running at a loss, things aren't working, and no bueno. But right now, this whole situation is us seeing the silver lining, seizing the opportunity, resolving all the challenges that we see with the project, bringing the community on board, and moving to a new layer, removing all the friction points. And it is a tough experience. If you can see where we're going, I hope you can join us on this journey. But if you can't, you can't. So yeah, that's us. We're moving forward. We're working at our fastest and our best to get this done and move to layer 2 quickly, to get rid of these friction points. Between then and now, yeah, we're going to go through a tough time. But at the same time, it's really important that people are running nodes. We do appreciate that. And we're going to do everything we can to bring them along on the journey across as well to Cent.
Yeah, and I'll just bookend that by saying, when we've been talking about the migration to Cent internally, one of our biggest focuses has been, how do we bring service node operators across to the new network, and how can we make it so that people actually want to, operate a Cent service node if they've been operating a service node on the Oxen chain before. So that is probably our primary focus in the migration, and we're doing everything we can to ensure that everything will be in place so that people should look at the migration and say, hey, this looks really good and I want to run a Cent service node.
Yeah, and it is really awesome how many nodes are running at this point in time. There's sort of a lot of people are engaged in the vision of the products and where we're going, rather than this moment and sort of freaking out with the challenges. So yeah, it's really awesome that people see this product and the network and everything and how it comes together. So thanks everybody who's running nodes.
Great. EVM-based privacy is pretty unproven at the moment. If that comes along and we are able to embrace it with Cent, wouldn't we assume that we're going to end up under similar regulatory pressure to what privacy coins are right now? And is it worth going through all of this, changing Oxen and making everything centered around a token, if that's going to be the end game?
Yeah, so I think Ethereum's taking the Ethereum kind of world is taking a bit of a different approach to this. Their privacy tends to be more opt-in privacy and based around zero knowledge proofs rather than kind of default privacy based around ring signatures. I don't see a world, at least in the foreseeable future, where kind of the default experience on an Ethereum chain or a layer 2 is completely private. And I think for regulators, they're much more comfortable with kind of opt-in privacy. I think regulators kind of understand the kind of cash model where most people's bank accounts are fairly trackable by the government, but then you have this option to go into cash, for example, where you can do your transactions a bit more privately. And I think that's kind of more understood by regulators. If there were to be a complete change to privacy at the base layer of Ethereum, or say one of these bigger layer 2s, I think just because of pure size, the size of the chain involved, like the amount of market cap, the regulators would have much less of a degree of control. Because Oxen's a very small chain, it becomes easier for exchanges to say, well, we don't want to deal with the regulatory risk there. It's only generating such and such trading volume. So we're going to delist them. And that becomes way harder when, it's your second or your first biggest coin to say, like, the regulatory risk is just too much there to handle. And I think we've seen exchanges kind of deal with that regulatory risk around bigger coins like Ethereum, or maybe even some of the privacy coins like Monero, even though they're struggling right now.
I think on top of that, a really cool concept with moving to an EVM-based token is that although a lot of the privacy is ripped out, there's third parties that are offering services that can give you privacy to your token are available as well by third parties. So it sort of like opens up that whole ecosystem of other privacy tools. And for us, we the opportunity of liquidity in terms of better exchange options, better DeFi options, and having that option for people to get in and out of the market and actually move around is in itself it's like an opportunity to sort of do what you want instead of having to go to one exchange, or with your really limited options with Oxen, it feels like you can only get in and out of one or two gateways. But if 1 Cent launches and we have Uniswap and all these other options for liquidity and exchange, it's with KYC and all this sort of stuff, you're much less limited as an individual. I don't know if that really. Yeah.
I think that's actually a really good point. Like the interoperability aspect of things. For example, even if the layer 2 that we go to doesn't provide any privacy and we're not able to implement these privacy solutions because of technical limitations, it's still much easier to go from an Ethereum layer 2 to another layer 2 that's private, or to go from Ethereum layer 2 to Monero, for example, or another privacy coin, because the rails are built, like a lot of the cryptocurrency rails right now are built around Ethereum and Bitcoin. So that just provides you so much more access to the entire ecosystem. And then also, as Chris was saying, like onboarding for new users in a non-KYC way becomes a lot easier for Ethereum as well. There are a lot of exchanges which Ethereum is listed on which don't require KYC, for example, and there's a lot of local kind of local swaps that you can do. You can buy Ethereum with cash, and that would be extremely hard to do with Oxen, for example.
So, Jason, does transitioning from a private chain to a public transparent chain sacrifice the key privacy ethos of the project?
Yes and no. So I read this question in advance, and I'm not sure that I can give this a really short answer, but I think I can give it a decent answer. And so when this idea came up, I think this idea was first seriously raised as something that we should consider in our foundation annual general meeting, which I think was in March of this year. To me, it kind of came out of the blue, and it was kind of a gut punch because, of course, I came into the project very much on the coin side, very much working on Loki and later Oxen. And so it's, for me, there's this personal connection that I've poured a lot of blood and tears into that Oxen coin code base. And that was my first thought. My second thought, though, is I looked at what the work that I've been doing over the past couple of years, and very little of that has actually been going on into the Oxen coin. I'm proud of what we did with Pulse and with Blink and so on. Those, I think, are really cool things, but they're not really, they're not all that useful in practice. So when you go back to what the early vision for Loki, it was about having that currency and having that currency be used. And so things like Blink is a really cool thing, so that you can go out and you can make a payment, and that payment goes through instantly. That's really awesome idea. But in practice, I have to look at the things that we're creating that are having a meaningful effect in the privacy space. It would be wonderful to have, a huge amount of money and resources that we could go after everything we want to go after, but we don't. And so we have to say, well, what are the things we're doing that are really unique? What are the things we're doing that are really the biggest contributions to privacy? And when I look at it from that perspective, I think Session is an amazing privacy tool. Things that we're doing there are fantastic. And I think LokiNet is another one. And those, to me, are the places that we're creating something really cool. When I think about it from the coin point of view, we haven't really contributed much in terms of privacy to the coin side of things. We're more or less just still a Monero fork that hasn't really progressed much beyond that. So in terms of what we're doing, I want to see us thrive as an ecosystem. I want to see us create the best privacy tools we can. And in this case, I think that, it is, we are sacrificing one part, but I think we're sacrificing the part that isn't contributing as much to privacy in a big picture as the other things that we're working on. So, like I said, yes and no. I think it is a sacrifice, but I don't think it's as big a sacrifice when you look at the meaningful things we're actually doing.
Interesting point there, Jason. It kind of feels like if you don't use it, you lose it. And we built all these tools and features and functions, but they're not getting used. And we sort of have to make the decision. It's like, do you keep like putting effort into something that's not being used and not being picked up, where it seems like the competitor such as Monero is good enough, and people, it's not good enough for them to move away from Monero into Oxen. Although it would be a better experience if people were. It wasn't good enough to then change and like have that fundamental change on the ground floor, I guess, for that whole community to move across. So
the other issue, of course, is that regulators around the world have sort of woken up to the information they're losing with privacy coins and have really put pressure on especially centralized exchanges, to say, hey, don't go near those privacy coins or we're going to give you a tough time. And I would love if we could win that fight. I just don't see any viable way that we actually can. And I think even for someone as big as Monero, I think that's still far from certain that they're going to be able to survive under that as well.
Yeah, thank you for the detailed and very insightful and personal answer, Jason. I think it's worth diving a bit more deeply into that question. So Chris, what will the team do to channel the success of Session into Cent?
Beautiful. To channel all that success, all that momentum from the user bases of Session and throwing that into Cent, we are looking to make the branding all aligned. So if you are a user of this Session application or a token holder or Cent, or you see any sort of movements out there in the space, you realize that they're all very related. So I think Josh will go a little bit further into that specific one. But yeah, bringing the branding, bringing the products, bringing the experience, bringing the feeling all together under one umbrella, and using that momentum of the 750,000 plus users that we have on Session right now to further understand how the network works. So as in the Web3 space, we definitely have one of the fastest growing and largest user bases that exist today. And we're looking at continuing to grow those numbers, grow that user base, and then use that momentum to bring it together into Cent as well.
Yeah, and from the branding standpoint, I guess there's two things. Like bringing it under the one ecosystem, like not only is good externally, but it's also good for us internally, because at the end of the day, like we are working on the same things together and all our products are quite deeply interconnected to each other. So to completely separate them out like this can cause a lot of confusion. So by bringing everything, by first of all, like leveraging the brand capital that Session has already, you can then catapult the other products and also give them a platform for people to see easily, similar to how Proton and Google do it. If like someone like Session, they might be able to easily, like, well, they will be easily able to just kind of like find, if we go down the route of calling it Session Token, if maybe we go down the route of calling LokiNet Session Router, you can easily just like get to each one of them from each individual website, right? Like, and if you like one product, there's a good chance that you might like one of the other products because they all kind of share a similar ethos to each other. So making that connection quite easily off the bat for people to go like, oh, I like this, and I see that here's like Session Token, or here's Session Router, or here's Session, to easily go there. It's a way easier jump than them being on a Session website and then going like, what's LokiNet? And then having to build up this connection in the head of what it is and how it interacts. If it's all under the one ecosystem, it's so much easier to show and explain how these things interact and how they connect, because already people associate a connection between them. And that, I think, is going to help funnel people throughout the entire ecosystem, because it's just going to be easier for them to see, hey, I might like this thing. And then they either decide, yes, I do like this, or they're like, no, I don't need to use this. And then it also makes it easier to plug in, for instance, if you want to go like a Session VPN, like some other product that fits in, it's easy to put that in there and have people instantly go like, oh, I see what this is. Like I see how this connects to everything else. So I feel like that's going to make the success of everything work a lot better and be more, you guys were talking about interoperable with, the outside world, but I feel like it also makes it more interoperable with each other and makes it easier to explain that to people.
Yeah, you touched briefly on the Proton idea, and I think they're an example of a company that's done this really well, where they have their kind of everything exists under Proton. So you have Proton Mail and Proton VPN and Proton Drive. When you go to the website, you see all of those apps listed out, but they're all underneath the same brand. And although, it might not be exactly like that, that's one of the core visions that we're looking at when we look at designing this branding, bringing everything under the same umbrella, so that the cognitive load for understanding all of the products becomes way less. It's like, and especially like, I've been talking about it a little bit, like the kind of the grug brain kind of analogy, like someone comes in and they're, trying to understand it very simply. It's like, session and session token, and they're like associated with each other, or it's session and sent, and they're associated with each other. And I think those associations become much easier to make than, say, associating session with Oxen, which is a completely different product with different branding and a different vision. So I think bringing all of that together is going to make the grug brain people go, immediately to what we want them to go to.
And for you, Key, will the EVM compatible changes allow for monetization to happen with smart contracts?
Yes. Part of the monetization strategy will need to happen with smart contracts, at least with the way that we're thinking about our new token economics design. There would be a pool of funds, and money or sent would flow into that pool and be paid out to service nodes. And the way that it flows into that pool is through a smart contract interaction, potentially the OPTF collecting funds manually through in-app payments and then sending the sent into that pool, which is paid out to the service nodes. Or I think there would also be options to grab sent yourself off the open markets and send that directly into the contract to pay for Session Pro. But we're looking at different options right now, so none of that's confirmed, but it will involve smart contract operations at the very least, because you need to push funds back into that pool.
I do think as well, like the ability to implement smart contracts and have smart contracts is also, could be good, like potential for the rest of our products as well. Being able to actually implement smart contracts makes a whole lot of potential possibilities for us to explore in the future as well.
Yeah, definitely with integrations as well, makes things a lot easier. For example, one of the things we were talking about a couple of weeks ago is currently ONSs are priced in Oxen. And the goal was always to price these kind of around a US dollar amount, so that they would be, around $5 or around $7. We never were really able to achieve that on Oxen, because we don't really have good access to the USD price of Oxen inside of the Oxen chain. And it needs to be set at a consensus level. But with Ethereum smart contracts, there are on-chain price oracles that we can get from Uniswap, for example. So we would be able to set, a price for ONS around the Uniswap price oracle for the Cent USD trading pair, for example. So that's just one example of something that we have better access to now than we did, on the Oxen chain.
And Josh, how does the marketing team plan to sell the long-term value of the project?
Yeah, clearly a key question here. But I'll take it for you, Key. Don't worry, I got this one.
Thanks.
So I think the three areas that we would go into selling the long-term vision for the project. I mean, we've talked a lot about it in this conversation that we've had already, but like to make it pretty clear, I think the three areas are related to the branding, related to interoperability, and related to the tokenomics. So from the branding, we've kind of talked about it a bunch. It's creating, leveraging the session brand capital that we've got and creating this one ecosystem. And like Key was saying before, just from a simple grug brain point of view, making it so easy for people to understand how the products fit and work together, to make that simple connection. You don't need to explain to someone how these things are related. They can just see the relation from the name and make that connection themselves. So the branding is definitely one, and that also goes into what I was saying before, making it easier to find the other products too from each other. Interoperability is something that we've touched on already in the chat, but just being a layer 2, like right now we are so isolated on our own little island, essentially, in the crypto space. I mean, back when we started, protocol coins were a really big deal and were kind of all the rage, but we've seen the the space move away from that over time. And it's clear that things have really become more like Bitcoin and Ethereum based and DeFi. And it just leaves us really in this situation where it's harder for us to interact with other people. And we can't play with other people in the ecosystem. So going to layer 2 helps us to, one, integrate more with other people, which means like there's more chance for meaningful partnerships and collaborations with other projects. It also makes it a lot easier for us in terms of exchanges, because it's dead simple for a lot of exchanges to implement Ethereum tokens. So that changes, that fixes the exchange problem. Also, when it comes to users like wallets, it makes it so easy for people to just like use MetaMask or use a wallet that they already have, that they're already familiar with. It makes it so much easier for them. It just like lowers the barrier to entry that currently we have many barriers to entry. And the more barriers that you can get rid of, the more adoption you're going to see in your product.
Yeah, like just reinforcing that point, like the barriers to entry stuff, I think is huge here. Like right now, when you're trying to onboard someone onto Oxen, or you're trying to convince them from a marketing perspective that Oxen is cool and valuable, like getting them over the hurdle of like needing to go onto an exchange which they may not know, use a wallet which they've never used before, and get used to kind of the CryptoNote / Monero experience, which is different from a lot of other cryptocurrencies. You don't have an in-browser wallet like you do with MetaMask. You don't have access to hardware wallets to the same degree that you do with Ethereum tokens. So I think, if anything, I think it's just going to reduce like the amount of like marketing that we need to do to get people over that hurdle. I think we're still going to do massive like marketing stuff. Pushes and stuff to get people onboarded, but that lowering that barrier to entry just means that more people are going to be affected by those pushes. So I think it's going to be huge for us.
Yeah, lowering friction is big. Even just staking from a website too, so they don't have to download a wallet or anything in particular to do that. Yeah, I think that stuff's going to be really big, really huge.
Just to slightly add on to that, the technical side of that answer, we have been pursuing having a hardware wallet for years, actually, and it's been a painful journey. And between the time we started and implemented it, and between the time we finally got a response after many months between inquiries to this certain hardware wallet company, they completely changed the rules and said, okay, well, your wallet based on Monero. Yeah, we have Monero. Yeah, we created Monero. Nah, that code is no good at all. You got to throw it out and start over. And it's really frustrating to come up against those sort of hurdles from a technical point of view, compared to just saying, hey, if we're a ERC20, there's no obstacle here.
Yeah, I think part of that removing obstacles and bringing on simplicity is that throughout our history, I would say one of the major lessons that I've learned is that if there is a more simpler sort of way you can communicate, word, or build something, I think it's the best. So in terms of understanding how we have these awesome products and the layer that's underneath it, if you can simplify that process from A to B and how they work together, it's the best. And with the tokenomics, like simplified, and with hardware wallets, simplified, and getting rid of all these friction points is going to allow us to move forward so much faster and allow people to see the project and get involved with the project so much faster as well. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Because our products are complicated enough as it is. Like we have so much complexity going on in what we do that trying to simplify things as much as possible is only a good thing.
We have some questions about the foundation coming up here. I think all of them will probably be pretty brief, but first up for Chris, is the OPTF considering a change of jurisdiction?
We have looked at different jurisdictions many times. We're not looking to move the OPTF overseas. It doesn't really have a high value. a lot of tail risk as well. We spent a long time setting up the foundation in Australia. We've built up a reputation and connections as well. So moving that overseas, it'd be quite challenging, and I don't really see the upside to it. The risks that we do face as a project, that I think at least the community sees, is that we have product such as Session, and people are concerned that the government would sort of force us to put backdoors in here or there. But as our software is open source, and anything that we do release would get picked up anyway, we're not super concerned about that. But we have looked at different jurisdictions for the product to make sure we can continue to protect it, to make sure it doesn't get slow down or hit friction points as well. So product, yes, we are looking to make sure that it's always protected. In terms of foundation jurisdiction, not really a high priority to change at the time.
And Jason, has the foundation sold any Oxen in the past 3, 6, or 12 months?
No, and no.
About 13 months. So
No.
you catch him out. Okay, yeah,
Easy.
He's
easy
good.
Answer.
He's good.
he's good.
Chris, how will the OPTF utilize the flip that they will be receiving?
Cool. So my personal side, we'll go into the foundation. My personal side, I'm very bullish on Flip, looking forward to their launch. We are pretty keen to run validators. So if anyone here is not sure what they are, it's sort of like our nodes. So there's going to be, I think, 100 at any point in time validators on the Flip network. We want to run as many as we can once it's live. 150, sorry, 150. We want to get in there. We want to run them. We want to support them. And so long term, that's our goal. We will use some of that allocation to accelerate and fund the OPTF where we need to. But yeah, it's a good project that we want to support and continue to work with as well.
Also with Chainflip, I think it potentially offers us access to some of the ecosystems that we would want access to if we moved over to an EVM chain as well. So I think integrations, which could be really cool, is and interesting. And I don't know if Chainflip's going to support this off the top of my head, but for example, if they added Monero, then it could offer a really interesting programmatic way to buy, say, an ONS or Session Pro with Monero and have that converted into Ethereum, and then have that converted into Cent, which flows on into the pool. So I think actually it could offer really interesting benefits for us just as a project too. So I think that's another cool thing that Chainflip might do that we could be involved in if they did do that.
All right, Josh. When Cent launch?
When Cent launch? Well, I mean, if you're talking about the actual token, I'm not sure, because I think there's a lot of technicals involved in actually getting there that I don't know the timelines for. If you're talking about actually just when will it exist publicly, like maybe have a website or maybe exist out in the world, still not 100% sure. It's probably going to have to happen either around or after when we do the rewarding, when we reward service nodes or do the swapping process. That's probably around the time that we'd have to do it, but still we have to talk and figure that stuff out more, because we're still in the process right now of figuring out how things are just going to straight up look. I mean, we're still in the process of figuring out, locking down the name, figuring out the messaging and how things are going to look. So until we actually have that kind of more concrete and more solidified, then the next step will be, finding the right time to actually go out with this stuff. But when it comes to actually the token side of things, that's, I don't know, maybe you guys have more thoughts around how long it would technically take to pull it off. But yeah, I'm not sure around that.
On the technical side, it's also hard to say as well, because it depends how fully fledged we want to make this system before the migration occurs. For example, we could probably pretty easily build a token and in a centralized way migrate people over to that token. but that wouldn't have any of the decentralized kind of bridging aspects that we might need to kind of run the service node network on the work chain and then have that those functions bridged over to the Ethereum chain. So like it really comes down to how we build this thing, and I think some of those decisions are yet to be made. So it's really hard to estimate what the timeline would be. Obviously, we're trying to push for as fast as possible, though. Like the more time that the community is left in flux, like in terms of not exactly knowing where things are going, I think the worse that it'll be. So we're all focused on delivering this as fast as possible.
There's a balance there, of course, which is as fast as possible, but we're not like giving up on looking at session. So we've got all these things going on at once.
So right now we're finalizing a few things on our end, getting everything nice and sexy, making sure everything works. Once we have a few fundamental boxes ticked, we want to go live. So I don't want to put a date on this because that's always a mistake. From everything I've ever seen in the crypto space or tech space. But yeah, I guess, as the other guy said, as soon as possible. We're doing our best. We're going as fast as we can. And we understand that a lot of people feel pain right now and frustration and disappointment in us as a project. But we're doing everything we possibly can to flip that, turn that round, and bring as many people with us as we can. Because we're not going anywhere. We're going hard, and we're going to try and send it as hard as we can.
Jason, is Oxen turning into a layer 2 token the real reason that Jeff ended up leaving the project a few months ago?
No. Pretty sure I did a whole video about this shortly after he left the project. There's a lot of answers in there, but I will just add as to this specific topic. Jeff left the project before we'd committed to going down this path, for one. But even at the time that we started thinking about whether this is a possibility, I did mention it to him in an offhand way, saying, what would you think if we went down this road? And he was actually receptive to the idea. So this definitely was not anything that any part of his decision to leave, at least as far as I know. I mean, it's possible he had some reasons he didn't convey to anyone, but no, basically is the answer.
And the final question, I will direct this at Chris, but anyone feel free to chime in. So obviously the current Oxen holders and operators have been patiently supporting us for the last 5 years in a vital aspect of the project. And how are we going to take care of those people who are out there holding Oxen and operating nodes at the moment?
Yeah, cool. I think a lot of people have put their blood, sweat, and tears into this project to get it to this point in time as well. And I would assume 99.9% of crypto projects raise capital and then just collapse and disappear within 12 to 24 months. So we've done our best, and it's better than the rest. Unfortunately, we've gone through a bit of a challenge here, and we are consistently doing our best, and we're consistently trying to solve any challenges that we face, just like this one. So we're here. At least we've been here for 5 years, going hard, and we're not stopping now. We're using this as an opportunity. We're seeing the silver lining in this, and we are, we've known for a little while that these challenges that we're facing at this point in time, and we see ahead of us as something that could cause issues in terms of making sure that the products should be supported as they scale. So yeah, now's the time. KuCoin is kind of annoying in this situation. It would have made things a lot smoother because we've done this for the community in a more positive way in our own time. But these things happen, unfortunately, and we're facing it. We're grabbing the bull by the horn, and we're putting the oxen aside, and we are moving towards Cent. So specifically with the users that we have, and Oxen holders and node operators, we really do appreciate all the support that people have given us over the years. Really, thank you all. We've put a lot of effort into this, and it's good that people have stuck with us and been so engaged with the community in terms of development in the Telegram and in the other communities. It's really great in GitHub, but yeah, look, I can't give any promises right now. All I can say is that look at what our intentions are. Look at what we're trying to do here. look at the products that we've built over this time. We're here. We're not running away. This is us. This is our faces. We didn't set out 5 years ago just to give up and to piss off the community. It was not our plan at any point in time. So, stick with us if you want. If you don't, you go. You do what you have to do. But yeah, we're not going anywhere, and we're going to do our best to turn this around and make things happen. So yeah, I'm excited about this. I hope that the community can see how. So we're excited about moving forward, and join us on the rest of this bumpy journey.
I would also say too to look at Session, right? Because like Session does have a decent user base. Session is actually seen as a legitimate player in the private messaging space. It gets recognized quite a bit. Even when we go to conferences and stuff, people already know of Session and they recognize us as part of Session. So it's not like we can't get a product noticed. We legitimately can build a product, we can put it into a market, and we can get it seen. This is just us doing that for the rest of our products, for the coin side of our products too. We felt barriers that have stopped us being able to do the same thing. So this is us trying to remove those barriers so that we can make it flourish like the rest of our products, like Session is.
I think I'd add also from a development point of view, I think that our focus and our means of developing has matured over the last few years. When we tended to have a focus of trying to get something out there quick, and I don't think it's controversial to say that has burned us a few times. We have taken a much more longer term focus on what we want these things to be. So we're not sitting here and saying let's cram some stuff into Session to just tick a bunch of boxes as fast as we can. We're building something that we want to be used next year and 5 years and 10 years down the road.
Well, that wraps up all of our questions for this particular AMA. I want to give a big thanks to all of the folks who are with us here today, Key, Jason, Josh, and Chris. It has been wonderful talking to all of you and getting some more insights into what all of the plans are. I'm sure that this is going to generate a whole new set of questions, which we will be back to answer again in the future. So if you want to know more details about one of the answers that you've heard in this video, or you want to get in touch with us, feel free to either pop into the community channels. We'll be in there monitoring and discussing with you guys as per usual. And we'll also probably be organizing another AMA in the near future. So make sure you keep tuned, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.